All right, put the record button on. All right, hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Micah, and with me today, you heard Jenny.
Hi.
We're going to be bringing you Dear Stop It Now Helpline. I'm afraid my brother is grooming a child. Behind the scenes, we have Lily, our administrator. She'll be helping with all our technical needs. And Mackenzie will be monitoring chat for questions as we go along. Everyone's going to be muted, but you can feel free to use chat to share thoughts, comments as we go along. If possible, we certainly will respond in the moment, but there is some time set aside at the end to specifically address any questions that may come up as well. Finally, just a quick note on the audio. If you're having problems or you just want to improve your audio, you can dial in using the phone number and unique audio pin provided in the audio section of your toolbar on the right. And finally, there will be a brief survey at the end. And after the webinar, you'll get a link with the email to the webinar recording and to the survey again. So we're going to just go ahead and get started. I'm going to turn my camera off, and so will Jenny. You'll see myself and Mackenzie a little bit later when we do our role play. Okay, so first we wanted to just talk about today's purpose, right? As you all know, people who sexually abuse children are people who are in our lives already. They're people we know, people that we love. And although we've done a similar webinar in the past about helpline contacts who are wondering if their partners are risk to children after they've discovered their partner has been watching child sexual abuse material, the focus today is really going to be much more on how to have a conversation and taking that next step. So we'll be talking about scenarios where an adult's behaviors are abusive, or at the very least, it's really clear that this adult has crossed boundaries. They may appear to be, quote unquote, grooming a child, and they're posing a risk to their safety. And in these situations, the concerned individual, the bystander, they have a close personal relationship to that adult whose behaviors are concerning. We're going to touch on the barriers, what gets in the way of having these difficult conversations, because better understanding these barriers really can help us prepare folks to take necessary actions when a child's safety is in question. We're also going to review warning signs in adults that may indicate that they are already abusing a child or the situation is high risk. And we're going to be confronting much more obvious behaviors that indicate a child may be at risk of abuse or may have already been harmed. While these may be common knowledge for some folks, sometimes some of the people we support, it just might not be so clear. So really by talking about warning signs, what warning signs to look out for in adults, we may be able to help others identify when it's time for them to take action. We'll also be sharing some tools and tips for having any type of difficult discussion from a conflict mediator, and she'll join us live in just a bit. And of course, we're gonna share how to have a conversation, this time with 2 different endings. We definitely heard your guys' requests, and yes, of course, these talks don't always go well, so we're gonna model what to do if a conversation heads south. And finally, we're gonna talk about what to do after a conversation, what these next steps are.
Great, thanks, Micah. So we just completed a 5+ data collection and analysis study resulting in a helpline report that will be released in the next month or 2, and also a journal article that was just released this past week in the Journal of Interpersonal Violence called I Didn't Know Where to Go, an examination of Stop It Now Sexual Abuse Prevention Helpline. So the data that you see up on your screen now it comes from that data analysis, and it demonstrates that in most cases, someone worried about sexual abuse knows both the child being abused or who's at risk for abuse and the person, whether it be another youth or an adult, who's sexually abusing a child or is at risk to harm a child. Now, the pie chart shows us that our data indicated that 70% of our helpline users during this time period knew both. And actually, when we add in the folks who know only the person abusing or who's at risk to abuse a child, that slice of 15%, we add that with the 70%, and it means that 85% actually knows the person who's abusing or who could be at risk. So this data does confirm what many of us have already heard, that nearly 90% of sexual abuse cases involve someone known to the child or that child's family. And can you imagine the dynamics, the multi-layer of concerns, fears, confusion when addressing sexual abuse concerns with people we know and love? Often these are people in close relationships with us, with a bystander. They're folks that we care about, that we depend upon. They're spouses, ex-spouses, parents, in-laws, adult siblings, other family members. And they're also frequently trusted community members, like teachers, coaches, pastors, rabbis, etc. It's easier to think of the case of a stranger, as in the stranger danger language, as being the person that we're, so-called up against. But we know that's just not the case. In most situations, we have to think about how to help people talk directly to people they know that are in their lives whose behaviors concern them. When we talk about perpetration prevention, this is one of the key steps, recognizing those opportunities to talk to someone whose feelings, thoughts, and behaviors towards children really do concern us, and then taking that opportunity. So our helpline really does provide us with so much information on the experiences of folks facing concerns about kids' sexual safety. It's really important to understand that people who are in a bystander position, what they're looking for, what they need when they reach out to our helpline or for help anywhere. For those of you who are working with caregiving adults and who may be in a position to respond to a client's concerns about the sexual behaviors of someone in their life, another adult, what we've learned from our helpline is that folks in these situations most often first need validation of what they're seeing. Our first defense when seeing something troubling is often that of just shutdown or denial or even rationalization. It's, of course, important to be clear and as specific as possible about the behaviors we're observing, but we want to empower folks to just both trust their gut and to put aside barriers that may get in the way of recognizing that a real problem is brewing or is already underway. We validate warning signs that folks are seeing. We listen to them without judgment, and we empower them to protect the child in question.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, for many of these folks, this may be, and it often is, the first time they've told anyone. And so if any of you are ever in this position to hear someone talk about this, we really do want you to remember that this initial response a person can get can help frame their thoughts of the situation and really just how they think about themselves in relation to this scenario. This helps them form their own opinions, it helps about their options, it helps empower them, and it just helps them feel less isolated. We're taking a role most frequently as their first confidant and as a witness. Unfortunately, there are very few resources for other people who are affected by abuse, by child sexual abuse, people like spouses and family members.
Yeah, so true. Additionally, the folks that we talk to want to know how to bring up the concern, whether even to bring it up, actually. They need to know how to begin the conversation, how to even talk about what they discovered and even how they found out, like if they found pictures of children going through someone's personal smartphone. They want to know what to say, how to say it, and even prepare for the possibility of denial or anger. They're naturally wondering about next steps. Should I leave them? Do I move out? Do I get my children out of the house? Should I tell others what's going on? Should I talk to his parents, my parents? So it makes sense that they're trying to figure out what this means for their relationship and their family, especially if children are involved. Most folks in this position often are not really yet at that place to look at a long-term picture or make long-term decisions. But if there are children, they of course want to know what they can do immediately to make sure their children are safe. And they want to know how and where to get help for the other person. And that includes how to have a meaningful, impactful conversation that leads to the person they're worried about either recognizing that they need help at least, or agreeing to seek a consultation with someone like a therapist. They want to tell the person that they're talking with where they can go for help, even that help is available. They want resources and support.
Yeah, and of course, in some cases, these bystanders are really also looking to check in to just kind of make sure that they're not complicit in any way. They want to know if they could be arrested for using the computer that they share together, or possibly even, criminally charged for not turning their loved one in. Really, they're just looking for information about their responsibility, what they're supposed to do, what the law requires them to do. And sometimes we even get more direct asks for reporting information, what the right channels to go through are, what a person can do if they're not sure they want to report the person who's abusing quite yet. And as Jenny said, for parents, the responsibility is most evident. People are wondering if their kids are at risk, but the next steps can still be confusing. Some people are very clear. They want to make a report to their local child protection service or to the police, and they're looking for information on how to do that, while others are still wondering about whether they should, what they can expect and what it could mean for their family. Really, our priority is always a child's safety. So our response is really going to focus on what steps can be taken immediately to make sure a child is safe. So as we think about what people in these difficult bystander roles need, let's read an email we got. This is really a typical type of scenario we often receive from folks who are in the immediate aftermath of some type of discovery of harmful imagery on their partner's phone or computer. So Laura says, last night I found some really scary stuff on my husband's laptop of searches for nude preteen models and other stuff that suggested he was looking for naked children. I picked up his phone and found actual photos of nude children. Some were on beaches like family photos, and some were completely naked and sexually suggestive poses. Excuse me. You can tell someone posed them this way. I just don't know what to think. I'm really scared for him and for me. We've been together for 24 years. I think I'm in shock and I have no idea what to do next.
Well, thanks, Micah. So we're actually going to do a quick poll now regarding Laura's situation. We want to know, in thinking about this particular situation, is doing the expected response of reporting someone for criminal behavior necessarily what you think you would actually do in this situation if you were Laura? So we're asking you to put aside your professional hat for a minute, put on your personal hat, and we really want you all to imagine here, like, what if this was your partner, someone you've shared so many years and good memories with? Is the answer, is it so cut and dried? Is it still simple? And, please, of course, be honest when answering this question. You'll see yes, no, and unsure up.
Wow, I'm seeing 50% are unsure so far. Oh, it's jumping up. Looks like about 60% of folks have voted, and we're still in the lead at, seeing people mostly saying unsure. We got 20% yes, 15% no.
Thanks. I can't quite see the poll actually, Micah, so
Okay.
that's
Sure,
why.
let me close that up for us.
There's a lot of uncertainty out there, it sounds like.
Yeah, let me close it up.
Great.
And share it. And so these are our results. It looks like the majority of you guys said, yeah, unsure, I just don't know. And that makes a lot of sense. Some people are pretty sure they're either saying yes or no. And, honestly, it's really hard to tell.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, everyone. For many folks who have, at least to their knowledge, had no personal experience of any kind with child sexual abuse, the answer about what to do does seem like it would be simple and cut and dried. It may seem very simple to them to follow through and to take action. And some of the things that may seem like the next steps, the obvious steps, call the police, call child protection services. Who cares if it's your husband? Stop seeing them, kick him out of the house, stop letting them watch any children, and similar responses like that. But what we hear on our helpline is that folks always thought it would be easy, that they thought they would know exactly what to do. They believe they would see a risk and spring into action, but it's just not that simple. It's just not that easy. And we want to emphasize that recognizing and working with barriers can really help you professionals when working with the families or clients you serve. By addressing these barriers, you can empower them to take next steps. Really understanding and respecting these barriers can help your own understanding of what may be needed to move closer to keeping a child safe. The barriers that you see on your screen and so many other barriers need to be a part of reflection and preparation. We can prepare ourselves to take the necessary steps we need to take and to help others take their own necessary steps when we see the barriers as not something we ignore or something to charge through, but as information about what's needed and what we can do to better address safety concerns, come up with safety plans that meet individual and family needs, and really to just be able to plan for next steps.
So let's stop and take a look at another letter. Looking at Spencer's letter, we'll kind of start to see how sometimes a bystander is concerned, but they think that they're still in the warning sign stage, when really, in fact, sexual abuse has already happened. So Spencer says, "My brother is the adult in question. A few months ago, he told me he'd started having inappropriate feelings towards his roommate's 12-year-old daughter and that he has been secretly peeking on her in the shower. He said that he immediately regretted his actions and he has since moved out. While he no longer has access to her, he clearly needs help, but I don't want to get him into trouble before he crosses the line. I think he's telling me this as a way of reaching out, but he doesn't know how to get help. What can I do?" So really, Spencer's letter helps us talk about what child sexual abuse is. I'm sure many of you know in this audience what the definition of child sexual abuse is, but we often get inquiries asking whether what a person is seeing is worrisome, or even asking how they should kind of handle the warning signs they've noticed. But the person has actually just unknowingly described an abuse situation, just like in Spencer's letter. And really, it's our job to clarify that, to make sure that they know that their role is now to work to keep further harm from occurring. And that can be really a shock to some people, but knowing the facts is important to clarifying our role and a bystander's role in protecting kids. So now we're going to hear from Jim. Jim says, "I'm contacting you because a good friend is displaying unnatural behavior towards his 11-year-old niece. My friend always seems happiest when he's with that child, although he has 2 sons that he basically ignores. He tells her secrets, gives her money, finds reasons to be alone with her, looks at her when he thinks no one is looking, and he goes out of his way to let her have her way. He's talked to her about adult sexual matters, even showing her pictures of adults in semi-nude embraces on the internet. And he's asked her to give him a massage. He always thinks he knows everything, and he's really defensive whenever you talk to him about anything. Should I do something?"
Yeah, well, knowing when it's time to talk up may seem pretty obvious, right? Such as with Jim's story here. Most of us out here would probably agree that we advocate for speaking up pretty much all of the time and anytime there's questionable behavior. But we just have to take into account that people experience things really differently. What may seem obvious to one person, offensive and concerning to them, just may totally escape another person's notice. In addition to clarifying language and definitions, we use warning signs to help better assess what might be going on. So on our helpline, we ask about other warning signs they might have observed in the adults they both care about and worry about. You'll find our tip sheet on adults at-risk behavior warning signs in your handouts. Sometimes looking at these warning signs really can help answer the question, could this be a one-time thing, or are there other things to pay attention to? In the case of Jim's friend, we see indications that his relationship with his niece is not age appropriate, that he does things that are not appropriate for an adult to do with a child, such as asking her to keep secrets and give her money. And this relationship is unlike the relationships he has with other children. He looks for opportunities for alone time with his niece, and then there are the sexual interactions, mature sexualized conversations, showing his niece the pictures of semi-nude adults in embraces, and of course, the massage requests. The bottom line with warning signs, while we may not know someone's intention, history, or motivation, we can use the warning signs to help us put into words what behaviors and situations are causing us to be suspicious. And of course, we always encourage any concerned bystander to trust their gut. So yes, Jim should speak up. So you have a bunch of concerning warning signs, or maybe there's even information that leads us to believe with certainty that a child is being sexually abused or that someone is engaging in abusive behavior, such as watching CSAM. At Stop It Now, we recognize that for many people, they will be in a position where talking to the adult in their life with the worrisome or abusive behaviors is possible. Preparing and learning how to have that conversation more easier and more effective is pretty critical. So let's start talking now about how we do have these conversations. First, I do want to share our resource, Let's Talk. And I'll actually, just as a side note, we're really excited to let folks know that a private donor has generously committed to updating and revising this handbook, or funding us to update and revise it. So we're excited to start that process soon. And right now, the Let's Talk guidebook the link to it is in your handouts. Now, one of our Helpline's key objectives is to prepare folks to have these conversations, folks that are in these bystander roles, these really complex and potentially emotionally conversations. Now, of course, safety is always a priority, and not everyone wants to or even can have these conversations. And really, that's okay. These are choices of actions. Some people do decide to just immediately move out of the relationship and sever all ties, or they decide to make a report contacting CPS or the police, and these are fine. They are a great response. The bottom line, though, is that if something does need to be done, we need to make sure something somehow is being done, that we are addressing the concern. And that's our focus, that we figure out what we can be done to immediately respond to a child's safety concerns. So if someone is thinking about having this type of conversation, or maybe even a second conversation, this Let's Talk guidebook is available as a tool to help folks prepare, and many of the communication skills and tactics we'll discuss here are reviewed in this guidebook. Now, for bystanders and people in similar positions, we want to emphasize the importance of reaching out for live professional support. For themselves, yes, but also to help them encourage their partner, their friend, or relative to seek help or to speak with a counselor maybe. We're focused on moving these concerns out of secrecy and isolation, and we want to emphasize the difficulty in dealing with these situations alone, that you can't really, you need the support. I can't emphasize enough, too, that while we're always hoping that we're able to get an adult at risk or who is abusing to a live engagement with a professional, at all times, our primary goal is, of course, children's safety. Now, before we dive deeper into the specifics of having a conversation directly with someone you care about who you believe is at risk to a child's sexual safety, we want to back up to just developing some skills about having difficult conversations about any topic. Communication tools, conversational skills for positive change. We really need these in any sort of difficult or dreaded conversation. So we asked Molly Froelich, an expert in communication, to join us for just a quick overview of some tips and thoughts about how to approach difficult conversations about any topic. Molly's a certified personal coach, mediator, and communication specialist. She's the mediation case coordinator at the Community Dispute Settlement Center in Cambridge, Massachusetts, where she also serves as a prisoner reentry mediator and conflict coach. She's provided numerous workshops and seminars on communication topics such as mediation tools for your toolbox, bullying prevention, and positive assertiveness. So, Molly, we really want to welcome you and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Well, so first, Molly, we're just want to start with some general communication tips for any potentially difficult conversation, and how people can prepare to have a talk that may feel kind of scary to them.
Well, whenever you're faced with a difficult or scary conversation, especially one like this that feels so daunting, it's important to keep your purpose in the front of your mind. What's your goal or your reason for having the conversation? In this case, the purpose is so very, very important, keeping a child or children safe, and nothing could be more important than that. And preparing to address this, it can really help if you're able to tap into your natural well of courage. It really does take some courage and a certain amount of confidence to address something like this. But you can do it. It's a natural courage that we all have inside us. And being prepared and feeling grounded going into the process is the way to access it. A few
Awesome.
general...
Yeah, don't keep going, sorry.
A few general things to keep in mind when you're prepared for a difficult conversation like this. First, you're going to have a lot of feelings that are coming up around the situation. That's a given. So my advice is to notice and name your feelings, allow them to be present, and get some support to express your feelings ahead of time if you need to. So to do this, think about who you're going to choose as your support person. You want an ally in this who's non-judgmental, a good listener, and who can understand the very sensitive nature of the situation. Privacy may really be important here, and if so, you'll need to consider that in deciding who can be a support person for you. But just in general, recognizing that a lot of feelings, sometimes even very conflicting feelings, may be coming up, and that is so normal. Getting support ahead of time can help you feel more solid and grounded when it comes time for you to have this important conversation. Once you're ready to set it up, you'll need to think about the timing for a difficult conversation. Obviously, you don't want to bring up a sensitive topic when a lot of other things are going on, when there's distractions, certainly not really at the spur of the moment when you just happen to be thinking about it. You want to set aside a quiet, private time to talk. Be sure to ask the other person when it works best for them. Respecting someone else's time is one thing you can do to set things up in a positive way. You want to maximize the possibility for success in the conversation. And one way to do that is to show respect for the other person. Any hard conversation goes best when you're starting with an attitude of respect and appealing to the humanity in the other person. Even if you're very angry, you can still talk to someone with dignity and humanity. Of course, your preparation should include thinking about what you're going to say and how you're going to say it. You might want to think through some language you'll use to talk about the person's problematic behaviors. Stick only to the facts and to behavior described objectively. Here's one way to think about this. Imagine if a video camera was recording the behavior you're concerned about. Now describe only what the camera sees. Whatever is observable by the camera lens, that's what you would describe. No judgments added. This way you're addressing factual information and you're avoiding inflammatory language. You want to describe the behavior and address it directly while taking the blame and the shame out of the equation. Again, keep your goal in mind. Shaming someone is not going to help your goal because that has the potential of shutting the person down. Your goal is to stay in dialogue with someone about keeping a child safe. Blame brings defensiveness and shame shuts people down. You want to work to keep the conversation open, and you also want to stay away from absolutes such as you always or you never. Simply stick to specific examples of behaviors.
That's really great, Molly. I really appreciate that. That's super helpful, and a lot of the stuff that we talk to folks about on the phone. And you gave us some great extra tips there. I love the bit about just describing what is in the camera. I'm wondering too how someone can really handle themselves if a conversation actually seems to be going nowhere, right? The person is in denial, they might not want to talk or even become angry or defensive. Maybe they're even saying something like, "You're the problem," thinking that I could be doing anything like that. What should someone do then?
Yeah, I mean, that can happen for sure. In spite of your best efforts, sometimes the conversation may not go well, and you have to be ready for that possibility. If you're met with a lot of anger or defensiveness, the best strategy is to not get rattled, to stay calm. Even if the person's raising their voice, keep a quiet, even tone of voice yourself. And again, just stick to the facts. Don't try to get into a power struggle with the person if the conversation seems to be going nowhere. And at some point, if it is going nowhere, it might be best to simply say, clearly this is not working right now and we need to leave this for another time. And you never know, sometimes even if the other person had a terrible defensive reaction and the conversation went nowhere, you may have planted a seed. This person now knows that you're clued into what's going on. There's a chance they'll be motivated to deal with the issue and may be willing to talk another time.
Great. That's so helpful. I'm wondering if there's any time that following up after a first unsuccessful conversation is actually not recommended.
I think earlier when Jenny was talking, she mentioned the safety of the situation, and that's important. That's really important here. It's important to assess your own safety before, during, and after the conversation. Is this person a powder keg ready to blow? Is there a risk for violence? Use your good instincts and intuition to know whether it's safe to return to the conversation or not. And if not, what's your next best option? Sometimes you're not sure about the safety factor. If so, could you have someone with you next time to talk to the person? Again, you'd have to be very careful as to who to bring with you, and keep in mind there's the possibility that this could backfire. With such a sensitive topic, the person could feel shamed, they could feel ganged up on, and they may really shut down. So that's something to consider.
Great.
Thank you.
One last question for you. How can someone debrief and really just how can they take care of themselves after having this type of talk, after having this type of discussion?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Taking care of yourself is so important after a hard conversation like this. Again, I would just encourage you to use your supports. Let yourself have your feelings. You may be feeling anger, fear, disgust, confusion. You may really need to let it out a bit in private. If you can, allow yourself to do that and to be taken care of by loved ones. And you know, self-care is so individual too. Some people feel most comforted in difficult times by getting right back into their regular routines, doing mundane things like washing the dishes or going for dog walks. Other people care for themselves by doing special things, you know, a warm bath, some soothing music, or some quiet time sitting in nature. It's very unique and personal to each of us. The important thing is to find what helps you personally to get back to a feeling of balance after a conversation that throws you off kilter.
Oh, that's wonderful, Molly. Thank you so very much. This has been so helpful.
You're welcome.
All right. So we're gonna come back now to talking about the strategies for a conversation specifically about someone's sexual behaviors. Molly shared with us some really wonderful guidance about the tone and some of the attributes of any difficult conversation, but certainly, you know, talking about a concern about someone's sexual behaviors really kind of just ups the ante in general. It's so important that we begin these conversations around that shared value, most often about keeping children safe. That when we start a difficult conversation, as Molly had said, we want to think about what our objective is. What is it that we want to get out of this conversation? And that's our shared value. What we want is that recognition that and commitment to children's safety. So, and if you've ever taken a training with us before, you know that we focus on talking about behaviors and not intentions. Again, as Molly said, and I agree, Mike, I love this, you know, that we stick to what you can see in a picture, the facts, what you know for sure. We're not making diagnoses. We're not making assumptions. We're talking about behaviors. You know, in some ways, when we're in this kind of conversation, we are trying to be persuasive. You know, you're trying to motivate the person to see that what they're doing is harmful and that help is available. And you may want to be clear about the legal and criminal risks that this person is taking. As you saw earlier, sometimes people think that what they're seeing or doing are not signs of actual abuse, but are only, and I don't use the word only lightly, warning signs. So providing education about the behaviors, identifying what is abusive, again, describing very clearly what it is that you've seen or have been told specifically that you have first-hand knowledge, that can help clearly define the concern. And if possible, the tone should be one of hope and optimism that help is available, that there is something that's positive that can be done to keep the child safe, that you are interested in help for the adult you're talking with as well, not just with getting them to stop what they're doing.
Yeah, and really for many people, beginning is one of the hardest things to do. One way to start is to just simply state your care for the person by saying, I care about you, and that you want them, you want your children and other children, you want your relationship and even your family to be safe and healthy. You can say something like, I care about you and I want to talk about something that may be difficult, but I really do cherish us and our relationship together. Or talk about your shared value, like Jenny said, your care and theirs for this particular child in question. What can often be the most challenging thing is having a conversation that's less accusatory than it is exploratory. Even when there's evidence, and really it can be easy to conclude that one's partner or one's brother is abusing children, try to hold off on blaming or drawing conclusions. This will all help the discussion. And now quickly just onto some don'ts. Some important points to note, if you hear something shocking or unexpected, just take a deep breath, restate what the person told you. This kind of gives you an extra minute or an extra second to process what they've just said, and it shows the other person that you're listening. Remember, it's really not your job to have all the answers, and you can always consult a professional. Really, that's what they're there for. And don't be afraid to ask clarifying questions if someone says something vague or general. And please remember, this isn't your only shot to make a difference. So if you feel like things didn't go as planned, or if you left with more confusion than ever, more question marks, it's okay. You can talk to this person again using the same framework. And that's actually recommended, as often this is a lot for someone on the receiving end to take in and process too.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, really, in some ways, the big question for me, even before embarking on this conversation, is how to prepare for a conversation that's sensitive, potentially personally triggering, and when you have a myriad of emotions, including love and care for someone, at the same time of feeling a lot of anger, grief, and maybe even disgust. How do you show up without so much anger that presenting an open, caring, and compassionate presence may be very hard? And I think Molly did a wonderful job of giving us some fabulous tools about naming our emotions and seeking out allies to prepare. But the bottom line is, there isn't an easy answer for this. Certainly, this is why we all strongly encourage support folks, having allies. And again, recognizing that your own self-care is incredibly important. Listening to your gut about what you're willing and capable of doing is really critical. This is the very difficult place of caring about someone, really caring about them and really wanting them to get help, and really trying not to hate them, although maybe you are in the moment, and thinking that you're not even sure you can able to have a relationship with them anymore, and all the confusion around these seemingly polar opposite places. There just isn't a single or easy answer to give. Sometimes time alone will light the next steps. So sometimes it's just a matter of putting one foot in front of the other, and with the best intentions and with support. As we're talking about protecting a child, sometimes we do risk relationships. We are uncomfortable so that we can do what's right. So we're gonna do our role play now. We've got to come clean. We actually had really hoped this time to bring you a real live male voice and not just one of us faking to be a male. And we had done a recording, we had videotaped it, and it turns out that we're not able to show that through this GoToWebinar platform. So we will be doing another live role play with you, with Micah and Mackenzie playing the roles. But in your handouts, when you get your follow-up email, there will be a link to this role play with a colleague of ours who joined us, Actual Male, and it'll be in YouTube so that you'll be able to use that moving forward. And as Micah had said right at the very beginning, we wanted to try and up the ante. So this time we are showing you the same scenario. And the scenario we'll be talking about is the one that's up on your screen with Sarah and Lewis. But this time we're going to have two different role plays. There'll be some similar pieces, but primarily one is going to be a little bit more smooth. And the other one has a little bit more tension and conflict and not quite the happy ending that we would like. So again, you see Sarah's letter up on screen. We're just kind of assuming that Sarah is a 30-something mom. She's going to talk to her daughter, Emma's uncle, Uncle Louis, 40-something brother-in-law, and she's going to be talking with him about his inappropriate and harmful behaviors with her teenage daughters. So Mike and Mackenzie are going to come on their screens any moment now, and we'll go ahead and get started with that.
Hello. And just a quick disclaimer again, we are using scripts. Let's go ahead and get started. Hey, Louis, I need to talk to you. Oh, Mackenzie, I can't hear you. Jenny, can you hear Mackenzie?
Can you hear me?
Oh, I got you. Yes, perfect. Okay, round two, guys. So sorry. Hey, Louis, I need to talk to you.
Micah, can you just say something? So sorry, everyone. We're just feeling it out.
Okay. Hey, Louis, I need to talk to you.
Why? What's up?
Louis, I'm really concerned right now. And actually, I think I'm angry. You know, I've always known that you love Emma and that the two of you are close, but we have a serious problem. And I'm bewildered even. You know, I've always thought that you were great with kids and I've trusted you. And I do think that you want the best for Emma. And that's why I'm talking to you now.
What are you talking about? What the hell's going on?
Look, Louis, Emma told me the other day that you forced a kiss on her without her consent and against her will. She said she was trying to pull away and you grabbed her and held her closer to you as you kissed her. That made her feel really uncomfortable. And then she shared the text that you sent her, and I'm so glad she did. You know, what she described, your behavior, it's completely inappropriate. It's criminal even. It crosses boundaries, it's unsafe. And those text messages, what were you thinking? That's just wrong.
Sarah, it's not what you think. I mean, I did kiss her, but I didn't mean to make her feel uncomfortable. I just know that she really loves me. I just kissed her cheek, for God's sakes. Why is that criminal? And every time I leave, she kisses me, and this time was no different. I think she's just embarrassed, you know, because she's getting older. But Sarah, you know how that goes. She's still a kid, and I have to show her that it's okay to kiss her uncle, right?
She does love you, but she loves you like a niece loves her uncle. You know, it's not okay to ever make someone kiss you, ever. That's what makes it criminal. For real, it's a violation. Assaultive even. We've taught her that she never has to say yes to any type of touch if she doesn't want to. That is her right, and you violated that.
I don't know what you want me to say, Sarah. You're right. I guess I crossed a line here, but you know I would never hurt her.
Yeah, Louis, I want to believe that, but that's not the only thing. Your text messages were beyond suggestive. What you wrote, they're things that you would say to someone you're dating. You said you had feelings for her and wanted to sleep in her room. Again, grossly inappropriate. I'm really not interested in why you said them or what you meant by them. It's just my job as her mother to speak up and set limits when I hear about something that's putting her safety at risk. So for the time being, I really would like you to take a big step back. Do not contact her, period, end of story. And that means texting too. If we're all together, I do not want you to approach her. And I'm sorry that this seems harsh, but it's important right now. I'm really grateful that Emma let me know what was happening and that she felt uncomfortable. She was really upset. No adult should be talking to my daughter in a sexual way or forcing a kiss on her like that. I want her to know that we all, and that means you too, we respect her right to safety and will do everything we can to keep her world safe.
I do care about her.
And Louis, I care about you. I really do. You're a part of my family. I've known you to be a really good person, and you go out of your way to help others. You're funny. We love you. And I'm wondering about what might be going on for you that's making you ignore these boundaries and ignore Emma's personal safety like this. Seriously, I'm not saying this to threaten you. I just want you to get how real this is. Emma's a minor legally, so maybe you consider reaching out to someone like a therapist, someone so you can talk about what's going on.
This is so messed up. I can't believe that you think I would harm Emma. This is breaking my heart.
And I'm sorry for that. That's not my intention, but please think about talking to someone. This really worries me.
I don't know. I have to think about this. I would never do anything with Emma, but I feel really, really bad that I scared her. I know that really isn't okay. I must have just misread everything.
Louis, you're the adult, Emma's a kid. You need to be the one responsible for knowing what's right and what's wrong like this.
Yeah, I know.
And again, this is big. Not understanding that you are crossing a line could one day get you in a whole lot of trouble, plus hurt someone else. Like I said, I know you're a good guy. I just want to see you figure some stuff out.
Like I said, I just need to think about this.
Okay, thanks, Louis. We'll talk later.
Great. Thanks, you guys. All right, everyone in the audience, hold on, because we're going to see the same scenario. You'll see some of the same script, but it'll start to take a turn. All right, you guys, you're on.
Okay. Hey, Louis, I need to talk to you.
Why? What's up?
Louis, I'm really concerned right now. I actually think I'm angry. I've always known that you love Emma and that the two of you are close, but we have a serious problem, and I'm totally confused. I've always thought that you were great with kids and I trusted you. And I really do think that you want the best for Emma, and that's why I'm talking to you now. This is really hard for me, but it's serious.
What are you talking about? What the hell's going on?
Look, Louis, Emma told me the other day that you forced a kiss on her without her consent and against her will. She said she was trying to pull away and you grabbed her and held her closer to you as you kissed her. That made her really uncomfortable. And then she shared those texts that you sent her, and I'm so glad she did. What she described, your behavior, is completely inappropriate. It's criminal even. It crosses boundaries, it's unsafe. And those text messages, what were you thinking? That's just wrong.
Sarah, it's not what you think. I mean, I did kiss her, but I didn't mean to make her feel uncomfortable. I just know that she really loves me. I just kissed her cheek, for God's sake, and why is that criminal? She kisses me every time I leave, and this time was no different. I think she's just embarrassed, because she's getting older, but you know how that goes, and she's still a kid. So I have to show her that it's normal for her to kiss her uncle, right?
Yeah, she does love you, but she loves you like a niece loves her uncle. And it's not okay to ever force someone to kiss you, ever. That's what makes it criminal. For real, it's a violation, assaultive even. We've taught her that she never has to say yes to any type of touch if she doesn't want to. That's her right. And you violated that.
I can't believe this. Are you freaking kidding me? I would never put Emma in any kind of risk. I would never hurt her.
Liz, I want to believe that, but that's not the only thing. Your text messages, they were beyond suggestive. What you wrote, those are things that you would say to someone you're dating or something. You said you had feelings for her and wanted to sleep in her room. Again, that's grossly inappropriate. I'm really not interested in why you said them or what you meant by them. It's my job as her mother to speak up and set limits when I hear about something that's putting her safety at risk.
That's enough. You have the audacity to accuse me of wanting to what? Touch your daughter? You think I want to go to bed and have sex with her? After the countless hours I've spent taking her to games, being a friend to her, helping you out financially, I should have expected this.
I'm sorry that you feel that way, and I'm sorry that you're so hurt. But at this time, I do not want you to contact her. Period. End of story. And that means no texting either. If we're all together, I do not want you to approach her. And I'm sorry that this seems harsh, but it's really important right now. I'm grateful that Emma let us know what was happening and that she felt uncomfortable. She was really upset. No adult should be talking to my daughter in a sexual way or forcing a kiss on her like that. And I want her to know that we all, and that means you too, Louis, we respect her right to safety and we'll do everything we can to keep her world safe.
You know what, Sarah? You've got a really sick mind. I do have feelings for your daughter, but not like what you think. You think I'm the perv, you're the sick one. And it's funny? You can't stop me from texting her. She knows I wouldn't do anything to hurt her.
I really was hoping that you wouldn't go against our wishes, but if we need to, we will block your number. And even if you don't agree, I've always believed that you wanted the best for Emma. And right now, this really is for the best. And Lewis, I care about you. I really do. You're a part of my family, and I've known you to be a really good person. You go out of your way to help other people. You're funny, and we love you. I'm wondering what may be going on for you right now that's making you ignore these boundaries and ignore Emma's personal safety like this. Seriously, I'm not saying this to threaten you, but I just want you to get how important this is. Emma is a minor legally, so maybe you consider reaching out to someone like a therapist to talk about what's going on.
This is so messed up. I can't believe that you think that I would harm Emma. This is breaking my heart.
Yeah, and I'm sorry about that. It's not my intention, but please think about talking to someone. This worries me. It hurts me to have to end things this way, but it seems like you're pretty upset and we're just not getting anywhere.
Fine, forget you.
All right. Thank you, you guys. Although I'm starting to get worried you're going to leave Stop It Now and pursue roles of acting. So
Maybe next year.
maybe next year. All right. So we'll get your cameras closed down and resume. Come back.
Okay, so we wanted to just do a quick debrief about those two role plays. We wanted to try and keep these true to life, but also wanted to share with you the model that we recommend for this type of conversation. In the moment, even with all the pre-planning, with all the practicing, we won't always get everything right. So the role plays model these kind of loosely. There are some things in both of these scenarios that actually we thought we could have done a little bit of a better job on, such as how we communicated a shared value for children's safety, especially Emma's safety. In some ways, Sarah did speak to that, but in general, we recommend this as a really strong beginning. Saying something like, I know that you want Emma to be safe, healthy, and with as little fear and discomfort as possible, or even just, I know you want the best for Emma. We hope that you all did observe overall an honest and genuine approach from Sarah. She was very specific in how she talked about what Lewis had done, and this certainly implied what she wanted. She wanted her daughter not to be made to feel uncomfortable and definitely not harmed. She was also really clear about what would happen next. She didn't get derailed even when Lewis got angry and defiant, and she really set the tone for next steps in terms of speaking up about boundaries, setting limits, talking about how Lewis wasn't going to be interacting with her from now on.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mike, I would add that also Sarah offered to Lewis the option of getting help and kind of, illustrated that this isn't it, that there's things that we can do to address this. So
great. Yeah. And so now the question is, what exactly does one do afterwards, right? Yes, a place to debrief, as Molly said, is really important. A friend, a therapist, maybe some of you all would be that spot to recap what happened with the parent you're working with. But it's also really important for a bystander to share what they've noticed with other allies, if they hadn't already done so. Speak to other people about any type of supervision changes. A person doesn't actually need to even say the reason why they're making these supervision changes if they don't want to, but getting other caregiving adults on board with any changes they make to a safety plan or how someone is allowed to interact with a child is really important. From here on out, the adult in question should not be left alone or in any type of position of power over any children, period, if at all possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, checking in with a child who's at risk or who you're even worried has been touched inappropriately, also is something that we need to do. We need to follow up. We need to know if that child has been harmed, whether they need help. We want to reassure them. We know this is all another training responding to a disclosing, but it's important that we want to talk with children about where to go if something does happen, and that we regularly review the rules with them and our safety plans and talk to them about how sometimes even adults that we really love and care about may have trouble understanding safety rules, and that if anyone does anything that makes them uncomfortable, that they can always come to you or their parent or whoever else is the safe, trusted, identified adult, even if they didn't say no in the moment. After following up with your conversation, also, I'm sorry, I meant what I'm trying to say is that also you want to follow up in a conversation with the person you talk to. So if you had made recommendations for resources, for help, you may want to check in, see if they've made any progress. Did they reach out to a professional? Do they have some safety planning steps that they've started to put in place? Is there another conversation just in general that needs to be had? You know, this may be especially true if the person stormed off in a huff the first time. You know, if safe, as we've said, we check back in after the conversation, giving that person the message that this is serious, that you're not going to let it go, and that you really want to help move this person along to hopefully a place where they do get help. But what if there is a repeat occurrence, or someone feels that they're nowhere closer to keeping a child safe than before, even after a conversation like this? Remember, there is always the option of reporting. Sometimes it may seem very clear, as we've talked about, or sometimes it may be a last resort.
So we're pretty close to wrapping up now, and yes, reporting certainly can be quite a difficult decision to make. I'm sure many of you all can add to this list that we have here. But again, these are all points to touch on when you're looking to help someone, and even helping to explain the process a person may encounter if reporting is done can be extremely helpful. You know, the unknown can be so much scarier than something we can actually conceptualize and potentially predict. So finally, beyond reporting to the police or CPS, another consideration is when someone's not ready to or decides not to report the user of child sexual abuse material. We can still encourage them to report the illegal content, you know, where they found that a URL, to organizations like Cyber Tipline here in the US. ICE actually also has a form to report child sexual abuse material online as well. While In Hope can direct you to the correct reporting body if you suspect that the imagery has originated outside of the United States. Finally, just a quick note for anyone who's a licensed counselor here. You may want to check out if your state mandates that you report someone if they share that they themselves or their partner has viewed child sexual abuse material, either currently or in the past, and if this differentiation in time actually matters when it comes to reporting.
Great. And Mike, I see we're almost out of time, so we just wanted to mention how important it is for bystanders to get support. I want to point out ATSA's referral sources, ATSA, the Association for Treatment of Sex Abusers. They also have on their referral resource page online a way to request resources for family and spouses of those who have offended. And also you may want to check out the Global Prevention Project's Family of Minor Attracted Persons Support Group. You'll see their website up online too.
So that's it. You know, please remember to do our survey afterwards. You're going to get a follow-up email with the links to the recording and the materials and the survey again. And yeah, I'd now like to open it up for questions.
Yeah, and I do know that we're just, 2 minutes short of 3, and some folks may have to jump off, but we certainly will stay on for a few extra moments and answer some questions. And
Absolutely.
I do see one up right now about what type of help is available for offenders after you report. This is a really great question. And first, I would actually want to direct you to 2 of our previous webinars on I'm Attracted to Children. Is there help for me? Where we do go with some expert guests, some depth about the resources and kind of treatment that may be available. You know, in many ways, providing support and help to adults who are have unwanted thoughts, feelings, and challenging behaviors that put kids at risk, we do want to make sure that they are getting some sort of help in order to keep them safe so that we can keep children safe. And there are therapists such as through the association, as we mentioned, the Association for Treatment of Sexual Abusers through ATSA, and there are some additional organizations for work with counselors who specialize in adult sexual problem behaviors. I think that's really important. Safety planning is really important as well, helping adults who need structure and planning strategies to keep their environment as trigger-free as possible is really important. We're not clinicians, at least not in this role, and so I kind of want to be careful about how much I recommend folks pursue, but there are lots of great resources to find out what the next step is, and we should always be doing that, figuring out what the next step is and not just kind of thinking everything's all done after report. So thank you so much for that question.
Let's see.
You know, as always, folks are always welcome to call or write in if they have any thoughts or questions after the webinar, certainly in your surveys. Although actually a quick moment, we have found occasionally that people have put in requests for the helpline in their survey comments. Please, if you do have a personal situation that you would like some resources and guidance on, please direct that directly back to our helpline so that we can make sure that you get a prompt response.
So that can either be done by emailing helpline@stopitnow.org or going to the Get Immediate Help page on our website.
Or the phone number, which is up on your screen.
Yep.
Well, it doesn't look like we have any burning questions. We really want to thank everyone for participating with us today. We don't expect to have another webinar out until after the new year, just because there's so many things on our plates now, but we look forward to chatting with you then. And as always, thank you for everything that you do to help keep children safe.
All right, take care, guys. Bye.